This 2012 Golf suffers from a really common problem, a failing ABS module. And the dealership, they quoted $4,300 to replace it. We are gonna fix it for a whole bunch less by doing a repair that the dealership can't do. Now, ABS module failure in these cars generally results in a ton of different warning lights because the ABS module is a huge player in the car. Not only is it responsible for all the anti-lock brakes functions, but it's also traction control, stability control. It's tied into the airbag system, and of course it's used for tire pressure lights. So even though the car might drive fine, ABS module failure is a bad thing. I almost never say this, but due to the complex and chaotic nature of replacing a module, this type of thing may be best left to the shop. Because of the infinite ways things can go wrong and potentially lack of equipment, in a lot of cases, YTech is only gonna sell to a shop. This ABS module lives at the back of our engine compartment on the passenger side, underneath this broken engine cover. And thankfully we have a 2.5 because that makes doing this much more easy. If you have a TDI, I feel bad for you, son. You got 99 problems, and swapping the ABS module and a diesel particulate filter and all that other stuff is probably most of them. I mentioned that the dealership quoted about $4,300 to replace the ABS module, but I gotta know, what do you think this repair should actually cost? Here's how this repair is gonna go down. Our ABS module comes out, we make the repair on the bench, module back in, long code, basic settings, bleed our brakes, then we test drive it and make sure we fixed it. Since this is a 2.5, we have plenty of room to get our module out. Now you are gonna need either a line wrench or a regular wrench. This would also be a great place for one of those ratcheting wrenches. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those, so we're just gonna go old school and get this module out of our car. Removing this module is pretty straightforward with a couple of cautions. One, you're gonna lose a bunch of brake fluid, so you wanna put something under your car to try and catch that. Two, be really careful with these brake lines. If you pull or tug on these lines too much, you can bend them, you can crease them, and make a really horribly bad day for yourself having to fix or replace one of these brake lines. Oh, don't worry about that. That's why I brought 3 different 11 mil wrenches, because I knew I'd drop one. Out of all the engines that Volkswagen has put out in like the last 30 years, this 2.5 is probably the best one. I really think 2.5 manual transmission is an elite powertrain in Volkswagen. It's reliable, good fuel economy, good power, and hey, if you want to get spicy and turbocharge it, they love the boost. Here we have our old ABS module and our repair part. So this is from YTech, and what it is the electrical portion of our ABS module. So what we need to do is take the hydraulic unit off and swap it onto our new electrical portion. Very rarely is it the pump or the hydraulic block that actually fails. It's parts inside the electric spot. So we're just gonna swap it over, and then I'm gonna send our old electronic part back to them. Many years ago, we were doing these on B5 Passats. Those were cool though, because you could do them in the car. You didn't have to take the module out, you didn't have to bleed the brakes. It was great. One note though, on the screws that hold the electrical portion to the hydraulic portion, these are Torx Plus, which have a little bit more round of an edge versus a regular Torx. Unfortunately, I don't have the right bit to access those properly, so we're gonna use a T20 regular Torx to take these apart, and we're just gonna be real careful with it. Now, our big savings for this job is coming by only replacing the electric part of this module. At the dealer, that's not a repair that they can do. The main reason is a dealership has to be able to warranty whatever repair they do throughout the US. So if they do a repair that's not replacing it with a part that they get directly from Volkswagen, they can't honor that warranty. I was giving the dealership a little bit of a hard time about the price, but I also want you to know, if I were still at the dealership, that's the exact repair and the exact quote that I would have had to make too. Since we're not at the dealership, we have the freedom to do whatever we want. We're doing just the electrical portion for about $1,200 in parts, another $30 or so in brake fluid, and the labor is gonna be roughly the same, minus swapping over the module parts. ABS module failure on this generation of car is pretty common. Unfortunately, this car didn't qualify for the recall, otherwise it would have been done at the dealership and the customer would have had to pay nothing. Our repair is technically done. Unfortunately, or fortunately, This was the easiest part of the whole job because the worst is yet to come. Because coding and programming this thing, definitely not fun. You gotta be real careful with these lines. I always start them by hand, as careful as I could possibly be. If it doesn't feel like it's threading in super easy, stop. Make sure there's no dirt in the threads, make sure you don't have it cross-threaded, any of that stuff. Last thing you wanna do is cross-thread a brake line into an ABS module, because now you're buying a whole module, and you're making a repair to the brake line. You don't wanna do either one of those. So, no Neanderthaling an ABS module. The other problem you're gonna run into is the brake fluid is super slippery, and so even with gloves on, sometimes it's hard to get a grip. What? That's a symbol for getting a good grip on a brake line. It's a universal symbol. Because we had the hydraulic system of our brakes open and lost a bunch of brake fluid, I'm hooking up the brake fluid machine so that we can bleed our brakes. Left front, left rear, right rear. This is just to get the majority of the air out of the system. Nice torquing skills. And let's put this guy on so we don't make a huge mess, hopefully. Who knows when this car had an actual brake service. Technically, you are supposed to have 2 bar of pressure on that bleeder machine, which is like 30 PSI. I don't like to go that high. This is more legacy stuff, but some of the older cars, that brake reservoir gets brittle, and I have exploded them on like B5 Passats, so I'm a little timid with those as far as like cranking the pressure all the way up. All we're trying to do is get the majority of the air out of the system right now. This is the part where you generally run into a problem. This can even be challenging and annoying for professional technicians like Paul, the master mechanic with a heart of gold. Even Paul might struggle. Really, doing the long coating is no problem, and YTech gives you what long coating you need to put into the module. So that part is actually easy. It's the basic setting that can be real problematic. This one might be okay, but I've seen guys really have problems with it. The module doesn't want to do the basic setting. It overheats. You got to put like a bag of ice on the ABS module. So dumb. So we're gonna go through this. Hopefully we don't have any struggles, but if I do, I can show you how to unstruggle bus yourself. Key on. Nope. Tech tip of the day, turn your key on. Long coating means that you can have one module that fits in a ton of different cars that are completely differently equipped. So it used to be coating would be, say, 5 characters, right? And you would build the whole whatever off of that 5-character setup. Now, because there's so many different things that can happen, this coating, for example, is that long. If you ever do long coating of any kind, save your original coating and triple check to be sure that you get this right. We read it off like 5 times, so oops, right. I mentioned earlier that doing coding in basic settings can be a real huge challenge. You'll never guess what happened. Even I had a super big problem getting this module coded and the basic settings done. So what I did was I called up YTech. They were able to log into my computer and help get that coding dumped in. We actually ended up using the original coding of the ABS module that was in the car in the first place, and that went through no problem. And the basic settings have to be done in this order. G85 basic setting, that's the steering angle sensor. Then you have to do G200, which is the lateral acceleration sensor, G201, which is the brake pressure sensor, then G251, which is the longitudinal acceleration sensor, 85, 200, 201, 251. If you do it in the wrong order, either it's not gonna work at all, or your coding can revert to all zeros again. So really take your time here and make sure you do a good job. Make sure you do it in that exact order. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. Once all the basic settings are done, you gotta do the ABS bleed procedure with the scan tool. Open the bleeder, activate the pump, follow the instructions on the scan tool. It'll tell you exactly what you need to do. This is the amount of fluid that we got out of both lefts. For a time, you could see the fluid actually getting lighter and lighter as we got fresh, clean fluid through. This is an opportunity to do a brake fluid flush in addition to a brake bleed. I'm gonna bleed the brakes and flush the brakes one more time just to make sure we've used all the fluid in that container, because it's not gonna really be any good anymore. And then we can put the wheels and tires on and drive it. And a test drive on this job, vital. I say test drive the car every time you do anything to it, but this kind of job, 100% vital that you take a good test drive on your car. Now I have a little bit of fluid still left in here, so I decided, let's go ahead and bleed the clutch, because I don't want to guarantee, but I guarantee It's never been done, and this car has like 160,000 some odd miles. All right, I gotta tell you, I expected it to be dirtier than that, but that's okay. You can see it's a little brown, but not too bad. What if it had been done before? I don't think so. A super important note, before you drive your car, make sure you pump that brake pedal up and be sure it's nice and firm and doesn't sink to the floor. You'll know that you got all your basic settings and everything done when all the lights in your dash go out. On your test drive, here's what you need to make sure you do. Be sure the car stops properly before you get wild and crazy. Find a safe place that you can do a panic stop. That's pretty good. Do at least one ABS stop and make sure all those solenoids inside the module are firing. That way you can be sure you fixed your car properly. There's one more thing that you want to do after you test drive your car, and that's get out and check your brake fluid level just to be sure that it's still right. That's an easy enough thing to do with your fluid reservoir right back here. Okay, there we go. We've saved thousands of dollars by doing this repair versus replacing the whole ABS module from the dealership. Now, this car also had a $7,000 estimate with a bunch of other stuff wrong with it. Tires, brakes, whatever with those things. But the leaking valve cover and the bad headliner are probably things that we're gonna take care of. And it dawned on me that I've only done one other 2.5 video. So if more 2.5 videos are your thing, let me know in the comments. With that, I'm out. Awesome day. I'll talk to you again next time. Bye.